spot with Don is kind of like a third-grade saxophone player choosing a tune to play with Charlie Parker. I'm bound to end up looking silly. Having been friends with Don for most of my life, I look at it now and it's kind of morphed. We started as teacher and student, that went to mentor and mentee, then to mates and colleagues for most of our lives. When I get a nibble, should I give it a bit of a jerk to try and hook them? Never seems to work for me.
Sure, you're a bit of a jerk yourself.
Thank you very much. Now, Don's at the stage where he needs looking after, and it's almost the other way around, and it's really lovely to be able to look after him a little, the way he did for me for so many years. Right, usual rules. If anyone goes swimming, we all go swimming.
Okay.
Lucky I'm a lifesaver. You've been sitting for too long.
Yeah. All right.
My legs are working.
He was always so robust and energetic. You never thought about what when Don gets old. What about if he gets frail or sick?
All right. Yep. Thank you. Right as rain.
We never even considered what would happen one day, inevitably. Suddenly, he needs help. Always feels good to get out on the water. It never crossed my mind that I'm not Don's family by blood or anything like that. It's too obvious that we are his family and that we needed to look after him.
Fingers in and I'll close the door.
It was just a new role suddenly. Don had always looked after me, and now it was time to look after him. Our new album has just come out.
Who's on that?
You, me, and Phil Stack on the bass. The three of us. It's come up really well. Let's have a listen. I've got it here.
It's always been Don and James. They've just always been great friends, great mates. They are two of the only musicians I know of who can just be put into a musical situation together and improvise, and they seem to weave in and out of each other's music.
Is that the only time it's ever been released?
Yeah, it's fairly new. We did it just before you had your stroke. We recorded it.
Like 20 years ago.
No, it's not 20 years ago. It's about 2.
As far as friendship, I'd say it's probably one of the deepest friendships you could ever witness. The love, the respect, the gratitude. He took James under his wing, and James took full advantage of it and just skyrocketed. And I don't think he's ever forgotten Don's help in that.
We've been out on the boat today. We did a bit of fishing. We didn't catch much. But as per usual,
Thank you.
we finish off every great day with an ice cream.
Ah.
There are so many people out there who feel that Don has had a connection with them and is their friend.
Is this the same day?
This is the same day. It's been a big day. And that's really my motivation in wanting to tell his story now and let people know Don's still around, Don still loves the music, and he's still how he always was. What is it you used to say? Don't take any wooden nickels.
In your case, don't take the door. See you, mate.
I first heard of Don, I think, when I was about 8 years old. It was incredible to hear the music he played, but also to know that this famous, wonderful musician was Australian. Everyone else who was a hero of mine was from somewhere else.
It's marvellous to be here with you in Broome, children. This little instrument here is a flute, and it's called a B-flat school flute, and it's the one I started on when I was about 9.
Don quickly became a star as a kid because he was so far ahead of everyone else.
Now to feature our saxophone soloist, Don Burrows.
By the time you get through to the 1960s, he was Australia's best-known jazz musician. He ended up playing with so many of the big names of jazz.
Don Burrows has played with Frank Sinatra, Nat King Cole, Stephen Grappelli. I mean, these are legendary names.
And if you wanted to know where Don was when he wasn't on the road playing, look for somewhere where they were biting.
My name's Don Burrows, and I'm a musician, but I guess if I had to write my epitaph, I'd have to put musician and fisherman.
I always hoped that one day I would get to meet him. Well, that day came when I was studying at the conservatorium. I was 16.
I came through the door an hour late with like a trombone, a trumpeter, euphonium, tripped over the sill and went with all the horns and looked up, thinking I could just say, sorry, Judy, and there was Don Burrows looking down at me like this, and I sort of went...
It was an auspicious moment, and I played for him that day.
He knocked the legs from under me. He really did. It was very good playing. And I thought to myself, God, if he's this good now, he's going to be real good. real good. You know, and the sky's the limit sort of thing, you know.
Meeting Don that day and having him invite me to join him was probably one of the biggest turning points in my life, certainly musically the biggest.
So I made it my business to spread his name and his abilities as quickly as I could to as many people as I could. And the best way to do it was to take him in the band with me.
Right away, it felt like we'd known each other for years. He said to me, I was born at the wrong time. He said I would have fitted in very well with him when he was 14.
James needed someone who was involved in the music world to help him get his act together, because he was someone who was not punctual, who didn't know how to dress or look after himself. And for Don to take on this role of being his mentor and interested in him as not only as a musician but as a young man was wonderful for us.
Don was certainly like my other dad, my musical father. He would just start passing things on. It was a natural thing for him to take you under his wing and start guiding you.
I felt like I was always trying to emulate what Don was doing and catch on. There was something he was doing. I thought if only I could work out just how he does that.
He deserves the success he's enjoying and the greater things I know he'll go on to as he grows and develops. You know, he's a young guy.
Sometimes Don was incredibly tough and strict. There were times when I thought that's a bit much. But you'd always think to yourself, but it's Don. And that meant two things. It meant, one, you know it's probably right. And two, you know he means it to help you, even if he's being what sometimes seemed like unreasonable.
Don really had this incredible respect for James's ability. Don always had in the back of his mind that he wasn't going to see this get lost and wasted.
Don and I performed together all the time over a period of about 6 or 7 years. And then after that time, when I really branched out on my own, we would get together regularly. We became more mates than teacher and student.
They became close, not just musically. It went beyond that in terms of looking after each other. When James got married to Judy and then they had 3 fantastic boys, it became much more of a family involvement, you know, with Don.
Oh, Don was Grandon. One of our children, I can't think which one it was, couldn't say Grandad, so he used to call him Grandon.
Yes, we called him Grandon because he was like our grandfather, mentoring us. He'd show us some stuff about music before we were even going to become jazz musicians or even musicians. We just loved music. We would consider each other family, like us to him and him to us. It's a very close bond.
I guess about a dozen years ago, Don decided it was time to move out of the big city. He'd already bought a block of land down at Paynesville on the Gippsland Lakes. He liked that area and he built himself a house there just how he wanted it, with a jetty for his boat so he could go fishing anytime.
And here I am, I now live here. And I've still got my friends in the music business. Lucky me, you know, because that's vital.
I'm a music coordinator at Paynesville Secondary College. When I first found out that Don Burrows was moving to the area, yeah, I was very excited. I couldn't believe it. Don being Don, as soon as he found out that I was involved with music, he was a big part of our program. He spent many hours coming in playing with the kids. Don was very healthy. There were occasions where we could see Don's memory, you know, fade ever so slightly, but he was still driving, he was still looking after himself.
Don's health seemed fine until he suddenly had the stroke. And I got a call in the middle of the night.
James was in Townsville and he flew through the night to come and pick up me in Sydney. And then we kept on going and got to the hospital. The doctor said to us that they didn't think that Don would walk again.
It was a shock. Now he didn't remember seemingly the last 10 years, and certainly couldn't remember the last 5 or 10 minutes. And we didn't know how he was going to recover.
He was motionless. He was paralysed down one side, couldn't eat, couldn't speak, didn't know anyone. So it was a huge stroke.
He was diagnosed with dementia shortly after his stroke. The stroke just made the appearance of his memory loss much worse than it had been.
He had therapy and he started to get back some use of his left-hand side to the point where he could just about hold the clarinet. I sat there with a trumpet and I was just playing a really simple old tune that we knew backwards. It was Honeysuckle Rose. And he was fumbling and he couldn't remember the chords and he started to get a bit distressed and he said, "I'm sorry, mate, I can't remember what to play." They were words I thought I'd never hear.
It was like he wasn't going to play. He held the clarinet and he just said, "I just can't."
I looked at Don. I had to become the teacher. I said, it's a G minor 7. You got to play an F. It felt wrong to be saying that to Don, and he tried it like a beginner. And the most amazing thing happened. He played a couple of right notes that I led him on, and it was like a switch flicked. And suddenly it was Don Burrows again. He was playing, just like he always did. It's like his mind snapped back into place. He didn't get his short-term memory back, but he got his personality back. I realised that music was so fundamental to Don, and so he needs to be where he can play with people and sit with musicians that he's played with and known all his life, so that he can feel alive.
I can't play anymore.
Yeah, you say that every time. Still sounds like Don Burrows to me.
Oh, God, was I always that crook?
Ready, set, go.
Well, ready, set, but I've got to go.
This way. We made the hard decision to move him up to Sydney. Judy and I look after him, we're his guardians.
Home sweet home.
This is home, all right. Yeah, it surely is.
James and I started looking for a nursing home close to us. Looking after Don was always something we had in our mind. Don was part of our family. if ever there needed to be an opportunity to look after him, it was sort of always going to be us. The fact that Don's not a blood relation has never mattered.
Just having a look to see what's gone in your book lately, Don.
Pardon?
Just having a look to see what's gone in your book lately. With Don's own family, it's something he's never talked about much. He was married a couple of times. Don has a couple of kids from his first marriage, but they've been estranged for many years. I've known Don for nearly 40 years and never met them.
I was green, inexperienced, everything about me becoming married. It was the wrong person. We weren't really meant for each other at all. And it led for me the greatest heartache and hurt that I've ever had in my life. And that's why I don't talk about it. The shades are down, you know.
Each time people come to visit, they put some more pictures in the book. So you can remember who's been around lately.
Yeah. Blimey.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
I think Don's real family are the people you spend your life with and have your life's experience with, and the people you feel give your life meaning. And that's the musicians that he's played with. Remember the vocal group, The Idea of North? Yeah, they came in and sang.
Yeah,
there they are.
Right now. Oh, look at that.
The best quality of life he was going to have was going to be around that large family of musicians.
I played with Don in a duo for a good 12 years, travelling around Australia and internationally.
Don, just pretend this is a gig and you'll be fine.
Don plays the flute for the sing-along session here, and it's just great because I get to see his old craft. Because he's a musician, he needs music all day, every day. I just think it's good for him because it's almost like he's back at work. He's playing his flute and, you know, that's his life's been that, so.
Well done, Don!
Yeah! And to the whole band!
Again!
I think it's wonderful. Don has the music cemented into his being. It seems not to be affected by the dementia, and he's fortunate to be able to have that as the cornerstone of his being.
Look at that. That's good.
Oh, there's a few more good ones coming up. So that was the way into your house.
Oh, yeah.
We thought we could have had Don for a little bit longer, I suppose, in Paynesville.
Oh, there he is. Oh, there he is, yeah.
We were a little bit upset. We thought that we could have looked after him. I just said to James at the time, whatever's best for Don.
Yeah, that was a nice, comfy house, all right.
But that's life. The decision was made to move him back to Sydney. He was born in Sydney, and we had to accept that.
Don comes to some gigs that I do sometimes. Judy brings him along so that she can take him home early. Sometimes it's too late to stay till the end. But he absolutely loves it. And it's like getting a shot of vitamins or something for him to come and hear a band. And he's always got lots to say about it. And says what he loves and then says, but they need to watch the bridge here, that chord's not quite, and all that. Still teaching. I've always been very aware of what Don's mentorship meant to me and consciously determined to try and be like him and pass on what had been given to me. So I decided to set up a school. It had to be in a regional area, away from the big city. Mount Gambier, because I've had an association with this city for nearly 30 years through the Generations in Jazz Festival. And I knew it was something Don would really, really love to see happen. After all, he'd started the first jazz course in Australia. It's a great way for me to continue the work that he started.
And because what you were doing, it wasn't obvious, then if you race a little bit, we go, whoa, where is it? I would make the last few beats obvious.
You just start there, mate.
This academy is built on what Don really wanted when he started the first jazz course in Australia. It was a place for musicians to meet and to play together. That's why I'm here, to play with people that are my own age, that share the same passion and love for this music. There it is. This is Don Burrows' baritone saxophone. I'm incredibly lucky to have had Don mentor me since I was 14. I met Don when I was in Queensland at a small jazz festival. We spoke every week on the phone, and that lasted for 5 more years. James is very much doing what Don did for so many years for young musicians.
Oh, sorry, right.
It's great now that James is carrying on Don's legacy. It's come full circle.
Being Professor Morrison now is, I'm getting used to it. So this is the Burrows room, and you can see lots of memorabilia of Don, pictures over the years. A young Brad Pitt there playing the trumpet. And I've got one more thing to go in here. My old report card from when I was at the Conservatorium and Don was my teacher. It says here about me, a talented musician and so on, but it says, needed talking to regarding lateness and reliability, but has completely responded. That's the bit I point out to the students. Yeah, some great photos, great memories. I'm finding it more than just satisfying running the academy. I'm finding it inspiring. And certainly, whilst ever I'm around, we'll be teaching about what Don Burrows has meant to Australian jazz.
Never any from me. I remember you used to tell me anything I asked.
If I had the answer.
You mostly seem to.
I don't. I hope I got it right.
Oh, look, all I can say is it's worked out pretty well so far.
They have switched roles in many ways in terms of taking care of each other. Right in the core of what Don wanted was to make sure James was going to be okay in terms of reaching his potential from a young player. And that's what's at the heart of James's now, really, isn't it?
Yes, I did a lot of playing.
To make sure that he's okay.
I just can't figure out where I am.
This is our place. We're in Sydney.
I'm a bit lost today.
The good thing about these days, Don, when you're a bit lost is, well, the bad thing about it is you might not remember the $50 you owe me.
Now, you're the one with the dud memory. I paid you back and the interest.
The unusual thing about Don's condition is that he seems far more aware of it than anyone I've ever met with any dementia. He actually talks about it.
I wish I could be more help to you.
That's all right.
I should have more to tell you. But it's around here and I can't get it to come to the front, you know. It's just one of those things.
Don, have a look at this.
I've actually retained a lot of memory and at the same time I've lost a lot.
And this is a video of you listening to yourself playing the clarinet.
It's all in there, but it's all over the joint. It's not filed.
He's improved and remained fairly stable over the last 3 years with minor deterioration. But sadly, dementia is not reversible.
In one way, it's sad that Don can't still just come out and tear it up on the stage like he used to. But in another way, it's wonderful that he's so happy and that he gets so much joy out of the music and still gives joy to people when they visit him.
What James and Judy have done is just amazing.
Not mine. That is yours.
They sort of adopted him and continue to look after him, which is basically out of love for the man.
It's very inspiring, and I hope one day I can do the same thing for my father and then and any other mentors that I have.
I think the choices we've made on behalf of Don have worked. Now we've gotten to a situation where he has this quality of life and we have a wonderful relationship, and it feels like that's forever. But I suppose it's not. In my mind, if I think about it, I just think that one day I'm going to go in to play with him, and that'll be the last time.
Looking after someone in their old age is a wonderful opportunity for your own family, wonderful for our children to see this happen. I think it gives a gift to you as well as to them. We'll be looking after Don forever. That's just part of our life. It's family, it's what you do.